Well, hello there and welcome to Bobo Bun So Vintage Life. I'm Lisa and I can't believe it, over 1,000 of you have now subscribed to watch my channel, which means you obviously want to not miss out on my videos and you enjoy what I'm putting out there. So that is just really marvellous. You know, you don't know when you start these things if people are going to really enjoy what you do. So I'm absolutely thrilled that you do enjoy, and some of you have started following me over on Instagram. Yeah, just enjoy these. Ever since I started doing my Bobo Bun in the Bog chats on Instagram, I had a lot of fun with those. They were a bit more informal than these. Obviously, I'm trying to think how to edit out a storyline with YouTube, but yeah, I found I really enjoyed talking to the camera, to you, through the camera. So thank you so much. So it's very exciting yesterday when I saw it hit over 1,000 subscribers. In YouTube terms, that number means something. So yeah, it's not just a like, whoa, yeah, isn't it great? I've got the numbers. So thank you very much. My other news yesterday, while we were about to go and get our passports signed, I got a phone call from the hospital that I am going to have an operation in 3 weeks' time. 10th of December. Have my gallbladder out, which needs to be done. I've had years of just never knowing when I have a flare up, and it's just the most horrific pain. I've probably told you before, but I've had like a £10 baby who came early, so she'd have been bigger if she was on time, and an £11 baby. I mean, that's like 3-month-old size. It didn't feel painful. It was at home, no pain relief and everything. So I know I've got a really high pain threshold. These gallbladder flare-ups are just like off the scale. So whilst I'm really scared at the thought of having general anaesthetic and, you know, my body being put to sleep and being operated on, I know it's going to be worth it. There'll be some pain afterwards and then I can get on with my life. Yeah, so that's the other news. It means I've got 3 weeks countdown trying to get so much sorted in terms of work, Christmas, home, blah, 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 blah. I've made lots of lists. I've told everybody that what I was going to sew them for Christmas just ain't happening. I just have not got the time because I want to sew for me. I'm not going to give up some of that time. So I'll sew after Christmas for them. So they can have belated presents, can't they? So that's like my catch-up news, and then I shall tell you what I'm going to do in this video. I decided that I would show you how I'll be sewing my shoulder pads for my jacket. Some news on that in a moment. And you've asked me if I could show you zips, so I thought I'd do invisible zip and a lapped zip. So I'm always demonstrating those in my classes, so I thought I'd do that today for you. Now, with the jacket, I'll pop a picture up, the one I'm working on, and I have also got it here. My lovely swing jacket that I'm doing to create a Tuppence Berrowford from Partners in Crime, Agatha Christie's Partners in Crime inspired outfit. So this is my jacket. I made all the lining. It's beautiful. It's sort of a black satin with flowers over lining. And I went to look for it a little while ago and I've put it in the rag bag that went off to the charity shop. For some reason I thought my sewn lining that was on my sewing pile, I mean, why would it be on my sewing pile if it wasn't something I needed to keep? But I clearly thought it was leftovers and put it in the rag bag. I can't tell you, I'm sure I don't have to tell you my level of disappointment, my kicking myself, my anger with myself, because if you've done similar things, you totally relate. I discovered this when I went to measure for my shoulder pads. Right, so I'll just quickly talk you through the shoulder pads, and then I'm going to show you how I make them and pop them in, and then we'll do zips. So yeah, it's kind of a few little techniquey bits here today. Right, so for my shoulder pad, this is the back of the jacket and this is the front. You always want the shoulder pad being a bit longer at the back, just marginally, you know, it's like a finger width, you know, and a bit of a shorter amount at the front. And it will sit here. This is the sort of shape more for a dress shoulder pad. You know, you'd have them thinner. For a jacket, they'd normally be triangular, but I like this shape for my shoulders because I've got very narrow sloping shoulders. I just like this shape. So as you can see, I've got it here, and how I measured, if I get my measuring tape, so I measured it as 5 centimetres across. So I just measure across that whole shoulder seam for the depth that I want. And then I measured that distance there, and then I measured how far up I wanted it to come, and that's that depth there. And then constructed this, it's not even a half circle, a half sort of lozengey shape. So I did that in felt, and then I've got 2 layers of, it's a fine weight quilting batting, and then I will cover that, just so it doesn't sort of pull apart, I'll just cover that with a layer of fabric before I sew them together. So obviously I've got 2 of the little devils there. So I shall show you that in a moment, how I sew them and pop them in, but sadly cannot then line my jacket because I haven't got any lining. I've got various other projects on the go to keep me happy, too many as usual. So I've got the dress I'm working on over there. I've been top stitching, and I decided I want to not do it in black, I want it in cream. The Buttericks, I think it was 6590. Yes, 6590. I showed you the pattern for that last week. Look, I've made my toile and worked out my adjustments. So it looks like I might get the dress made for the 3rd of December, the week before I have my operation, out of this lovely vintage fabric I've got here. So they're my other sewing plans. So over to sewing the shoulder pads, and then it'll be time to sew the zips. To make my shoulder pads, I use layers of quilting batting, and just go as thick as you want, and I put them between some felt and some fabric on the back side of it, and then I just stitch through all the layers with concentric circles, as you see. And then I'll sew the straight edge along the shoulder seam of my jacket. It's quite tough to sort of pin it through. You could hand sew this, but I've got enough of a seam to sew it on the machine. Also, my machine goes through all those thick layers, which is handy. And then the last bit is to sew that top curved bit just to the shoulder seam to get that in place. And my pin just totally missed going through the fabric, but never mind. So I'll just attach that on, do a bit of handy stitching, and then it will all be in place. And obviously I've got one more shoulder pad to make. And once they're in place, I'll put them on, see if I'm happy with how they fit, and then I can pop my lining in, which will be hurrah when I buy the lining again. There it is, all sewn in place, and then how it's looking in the jacket, and just pushing that shoulder out. And I'll just show you what the other side looks like, just laying flat, just a bit less, more floppy. Now here are both of my zips. They've been taken out of other projects. They've got some threads in, and I'm missing the top of the tape on the invisible zips, so don't worry about that. It's just because it's been cut off, it's been taken out of something. So you see the teeth on the underside, and the right side looks smooth. And then we've got the proper exposed zip. I don't know why I said proper, it's an exposed zip. And I've pre-prepared the fabric. So I've already sewn the bottom seam at 5/8 for the lapped zip. And then I've pressed back one side at 3/8 of an inch, and the other, the right hand side, at 5/8. That's the side that will be lapping over the top. So you can see that both sides as I'm demonstrating to you here. And then my 3/8 bit there. And obviously I've overlocked. I've made the depth right so I get the zip pull at the bottom, because we'll be coming in at a right angle below that. Now you pin in the left hand side first. Just try to think my left and right is the left hand side. So I'll place the fabric, you know, the seam edge right up against the zip teeth and pin that in nice and neatly. And it's only this side we're going to be sewing at first. So I've got my invisible zip foot here, or concealed zip foot, It's got a hole at the front where the needle goes through, and then it's got a channel either side depending on which side of the zip you're sewing. And then the teeth fit into that like a train down a tunnel, you know, on train tracks. So you can't go wrong, and obviously all the stitches are sewn underneath, so they're all hidden away, so nothing shows on the front of your garment. And then with your regular zip foot, which I'll be using for the lap zip, this will run down the side of the zip teeth, and then it's got a raised bit that runs along the top of the teeth. Whereas if you used a normal foot, you can see you'd be stitching far too far away. When sewing in a regular zip, you've always got to work around the zip pull, so I pull it down so far, and then when I get near the bottom, it's a real fun and games trying to lift up the foot enough to get that zip pull past, but hurrah, I managed it. And then I will carry on sewing just neatly. I'm not going around any lumps and bumps. And I'll carry on down to the bottom, and then I'll just back stitch. And I came in a little bit too far on this one, so you will see 2 stitches. When I was doing this properly, you wouldn't. And obviously I've used black thread, so you can see what I've sewn a bit more easily. Now for the right side of the lap zip, and I can't believe, I thought I videoed this, and obviously they're all sewn in, and apologies, I had sort of a bit of fuzzy migraine eyes when I was sewing this, but I just wanted to get on with it. So I realised I didn't show you how I pinned this bit in, but I had it all done up, and you make sure that you're covering the stitching on the left side, and then pin just below your, you know, behind your teeth, making sure you've caught in all the seam allowance. Do apologise, that's one of the trickier bits, and that's the bit I haven't got you know, shown for you, so it's very annoying. Then I finally got my zip foot on the right side and get it all into place to sew down the length of it. You can see I'm really faffing to try and get this to work. Obviously here just trying to be accurate to get a really nice straight line. And then when I get down near the bottom, I've got to move that zip pull out of the way as I did before. So again, it's like the tugging and pulling and lifting, and it can be so frustrating. You need about 50 pairs of hands for doing this. And then I'm going to come into the bottom, and then I will go off at a right hand, you know, corner. I'll leave my needle in, rotate at 90 degrees. Right hand corner, I don't know, 90-degree angle makes more sense. And then I'll finish at the seam line. There you can see that stitching that I was really annoyed about. So that's just coming in to nicely finish it. Ta-da! One lap zip. In Blue Peter tradition, here is one I've prepared earlier. So with an invisible zip, you never sew the seam below it. You do that afterwards. And I've made 2 pen marks here as if that's a skirt and you know, bodice meeting at the waist, just to show you what you would do at that point. So I've pressed under my seam allowances. And what we're going to do is then pull that fabric out. I will move my hands down in a minute. Told you I had fuzzy eyes, I couldn't quite see what I was doing. And you put the zip teeth up against that pressed edge. So that's where, you know, it will all be curling in, because those teeth are going to be moved over by the invisible zip foot that's going to do the stitching underneath. So it'll all be magically hidden away. So for showing you how to do this, I just keep the pins in, but normally I would then hand sew it all in. But I'm naughtily not doing that this time. Now at the meeting point at the waist, make a mark on the zip so that they match up. You can place it in the same place on both sides. Now for finishing the bottom of your zip, I've left it longer just to show you how you don't have to use the whole length of an invisible zip. So I'm going to make a new bar stop at the end. So I'm going to sew over back and forth, or you can sew it by hand, but I'm just going to do it on the machine. So I'll go back and forth a few times so that the zip will stop here. Then once I've done that, I remember to get my just all-purpose scissors. I'm not using my lovely sewing scissors, just to cut that extra end off. And you can cover that with some ribbon or something if it's going to be in a scratchy place like near your bum or something. And then it's time to sew, you know, the bottom seam below that zip. So I'm going to sew that the normal seam allowance with my regular sewing foot, machine foot. So I'll go all the way up, and then when I get to nearly the bottom of the zip tape, or the zip itself, so I'm trying to think and you know, watch this and talk at the same time. I'll back stitch just there, and I'm pulling it out of the way. It's quite tricky. You need to come up a couple of stitches just inside this so you don't have a hole at the bottom. So I'm going to swap over to my zip foot now, you know, my regular zip foot, just so I can come in close, just to sew those few stitches just under the bottom, you know, of the zip tape. I've still got a pin fiddling about under there. So it can be quite fiddly to do this, but remember, it's only a couple of stitches you need to do. Just making sure everything really is out of the way, because it's quite bulky and you're kind of going in a bit blind really. And hopefully I will have done this okay, so that when I show you it is nice and smooth. Nearly there, and then I can turn it over and show you what it looks like. If my fingers worked, of course. There we go, can you see it's just got a nice smooth run into the bottom of that zip. So I'm really, really pleased with that. Then I've just got to finish some other bits inside. I'll just show you what it looks like. See, all hidden away there, and that waistline matches. And then it's changing over to my regular foot again, machine foot. I'm just going to sew the tape, you know, the zip tape to the seam allowances. See, I've caught that one when I did that bottom bit, but I'm just going to sew that out of the way. And again, you can hand sew these or machine sew them. So I'll just sew that into the bottom, and I would be cutting all these threads off and making it tidier, but this is just a demonstration, is it not? So there we go, I've got that one done. And then I'm going to do the top of the zip tape. Now I told you I had cut those off because it was in something else, but normally I've got just enough to show you what to do, that I would bend those in together and just sew those together at the top. And once I've done that, I would then sew the tape down. So I hope you found that useful. I don't know why, but a lot of people say they fear zips, but zips are marvellous things, you know, as are all closures and the choices we make about the closure we're going to use. So please, please don't fear them again. They're there to be enjoyed. Now before I pop off, I did forget to tell you what I was wearing today, and you might find that interesting. I know I do. I always want to know what people are wearing. So I have on my green, what was it called? The Soundtrack cardigan from Poison Girl. So I have shown you this before, still not done any buttons. I don't know if I'm ever going to get buttons on here. I can't find the colours I like. I was going to knit them, but I don't like how that finishes up. So yeah. A vintage brooch that was gifted by a friend. I wear this lots. I absolutely adore this. I think it's 1950s, little plastic brooch. And then I've got a dress on that's a smooth sailing blouse that I turned into a shirt dress. I'm not standing up. I feel lazy. I'm going to stay sitting. But it's got an A-line skirt, and I can't for the life of me remember what pattern, but it's an A-line skirt. So I shortened the wearing history blouse. I've done that a few times and turned it into a shirt dress. I have got a side, trying to feel it, it's an invisible zip in this one. Sometimes I would do it with you know, side snaps, but I've got a zip in this one. And then there's this beautiful vintage fabric from Susie Sharp Vintage. My brain trying to remember. And then these beautiful vintage buttons, who are probably also from her. But yeah, I love this dress. I've got top stitching on the collar. I sort of rounded the collar tips. So that's today's outfit. So thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope you found it useful. As I've already said, I do repeat myself. If I had like the producer over there, he'd probably keep saying cut. I have to in my brain. I'm talking to you. My brain's going, have I said? I don't know. Does it matter? You're probably not really listening to some of the content. You're just getting the gist. So it's fine. I can repeat myself. I can repeat myself. So thank you for joining me. again here today. And hopefully you'll join me next time when I will share something totally different with you. Hopefully some more sewing, things I've sewn and made, and sort of chat about those things. It'd be really nice if I could be sharing my tuppence Beresford outfit with you, but I think that may have to wait till I get some lining. So have a lovely time whatever you're up to, and until I see you next week, ta-ta for now.